The blade was an inch from her throat when I caught the assassin's wrist. I did not plan this moment. I did not choose this fight. I only knew that if I let go, the woman behind me would be dead before she took her next breath, and I had promised her I would not let that happen. My name is Ethan Marlowe, and 3 days earlier I was nobody, a former soldier doing security work on a rusted trade station at the edge of nowhere, avoided by every alien crew that passed through because nobody trusted a human with anything that mattered. Then Princess Kalith Visara walked into my life and changed everything. She did not choose me because I was strong. She did not choose me because I had medals, or rank, or a reputation. She chose me because I was human, and among her people, humans carried a reputation none of us had earned on purpose. We were the species nobody could predict, the species that did not know when to stop. Now, gripping the wrist of a killer sent to end her life, I finally understood why. The assassin twisted free and stepped back, studying me with narrow, calculating eyes. He was Vithari, tall and pale-skinned, trained in a fighting style built on precision and honor. His people fought like a conversation, each strike answered by a counter, every duel following unspoken rules. He expected me to follow those rules too. I did not. I drove forward instead of retreating, closing the distance he needed to keep. He struck me across the ribs, a blow that should have folded me in half. It hurt. It hurt more than I wanted to admit, but I kept moving, because stopping was not something I knew how to do once someone I was protecting stood behind me. He hesitated, just for a heartbeat. That hesitation was enough. I disarmed him and pinned him against the cabin wall until station security arrived. He did not fight back after that. He only stared at me the way you stare at something that breaks the rules you were taught to trust. Kalith did not thank me right away. She simply exhaled, steadying herself against the doorway, her violet eyes searching my face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "You should have ducked," she said. "You took that hit on purpose." "Ducking would have put you in his path," I said. "That wasn't happening." She looked at me a long moment, then nodded slowly, as if confirming something she already believed. That was the first attempt on her life since I had taken the job. It would not be the last. Kalith was the last surviving heir of a fractured royal line, and her uncle wanted the throne badly enough to hire an entire guild of killers to make sure she never reached it. Every bodyguard she had hired before me had been bribed, frightened off, or quietly removed. I was, according to her own advisors, an act of desperation, a human, feral, unpredictable, impossible to reason with once a fight began. I did not know then that this reputation was actually the reason she trusted me, more than anyone else in her court. There was a war, she told me later, as our transport cut through open space toward the capital world. Centuries ago, your people and mine, and a few others, clashed over territory neither side fully understood. It did not last long, but it left a mark that never faded. What happened? Your species lost every early battle, she said. Your ships were slower, your weapons were weaker. By every measure that mattered, you should have surrendered within weeks. But we didn't. No, she said quietly. You kept coming. Every time we thought we had broken your resolve, more of you arrived. You did not fight like a species trying to win. You fought like a species that could not imagine losing. Eventually, my ancestors realized that defeating you was not the same as making you stop. So they stopped instead. I sat with that for a while. It was strange, hearing history I had never been taught, filtered through the memory of the people who had once feared us. So that's why you picked me, I said. Not because I'm the best fighter you could find. You are not, she said, almost smiling. But every assassin sent after me has been trained to fight something that surrenders when the odds turn. They have never faced someone who refuses to. I asked her why she was risking everything on a stranger's contract instead of trusted guards from her own house. Because everyone I trusted has already been bought, she said. You cannot be bought if you were never taught to calculate loyalty as a price. 2 days later, the guild sent more than one assassin. We were crossing a transit hub when I noticed it. 3 separate patterns of movement converging toward our position from different directions, too coordinated to be coincidence. I pulled Kalith into a service corridor before she could ask what was wrong. They found the schedule, I said. Someone leaked it. From my own court, she said. her voice tightening with something between anger and fear. I did not have time to comfort her. I had time to act. I led her through the maintenance levels instead of the passenger routes, using service doors that were not on any public map. I disabled 2 security cameras along the way, not to hide from Calith's people, but to slow down anyone tracking our position through the station network. Every alien I had worked with before believed in following procedure. I believed in making sure procedure never had the chance to catch up to us. 3 assassins found us anyway, near the old cargo bay, a dead end I had chosen on purpose. They expected one guard to be overwhelmed quickly. Instead, I used the tight space against them, forcing them to come at me one at a time, instead of surrounding us. I fought the first one to exhaustion rather than victory, wearing him down until he could not lift his arm to strike again. I startled the second by refusing to retreat, even when I had clearly lost the exchange, absorbing blow after blow until he simply stopped, uncertain what he was even fighting anymore. The third one was smarter. He aimed for Calith instead of me. I stepped into his path without thinking, taking the strike meant for her across my shoulder. It was enough to buy her the half-second she needed to reach the emergency panel and seal the bay door between us and him. He stood on the other side of the reinforced glass, staring at me through it, breathing hard. "Why?" he said, his voice muffled but clear enough to understand. "The contract is not worth this. Withdraw and live." "That's not how this works," I said. "Humans," he muttered, shaking his head, and walked away. Calith knelt beside me afterward, checking the wound on my shoulder with hands that trembled slightly despite her calm expression. "You could have let him take that hit somewhere less costly," she said. "There wasn't a less costly place," I said. "He was aiming at you." She did not answer right away. She only pressed a cloth to the wound and stayed close until the transport crew arrived to help. That night, I realized the leak had to be coming from someone inside her personal staff, someone who knew our schedule before we did. I began watching the small details, who asked which questions, who seemed too calm during the attacks, who avoided being anywhere near danger at exactly the right moments. It was her chief advisor, a quiet, careful man named Aldrin Voss, who had served her family for years, and who everyone assumed was above suspicion. That assumption was exactly what made him useful to her uncle. I did not accuse him outright. I let him believe I suspected nothing, while quietly rerouting our final approach to the capital through a path only I knew, feeding false information to the one channel I knew he had access to. The guild's master assassin was waiting for us anyway, at the false location I had planted, along with half of Aldrin's private guard, ready to finish what 3 earlier attempts had failed to do. I met them there without Calith, having left her under the protection of station security while I dealt with the real threat myself. The master assassin, a tall figure named Corvith, studied me across the empty hangar, with something close to curiosity. "You came alone," he said. "That is not what a rational bodyguard does." "I'm not protecting myself," I said. "I'm protecting her. That means dealing with you before you ever get close to her again." "You cannot win this," he said. "There are a dozen of us." "You're thinking about this like a fight you can calculate," I said. "That's your first mistake." I did not win by being stronger than a dozen trained killers. I won by refusing to fight the fight they had planned. I used the hangar's own machinery against them, cutting power to disorient their formation, collapsing a loading platform to separate them into smaller groups I could face one at a time, and using every ounce of stubborn refusal to stop that had apparently defined my species since before I was born. By the time station security arrived, following the emergency signal I had triggered the moment I entered the hangar, most of Corvith's team had been subdued, and Aldrin's betrayal had been exposed through the communications he never realized I had already redirected to Calith's most trusted allies. Corvith himself was the last to stand, breathing hard, staring at me with the same disbelief I had seen in every assassin before him. "You should have died 3 times already," he said. "I know," I said. "That's usually when we're just getting started." He lowered his weapon, not out of mercy, but out of the simple recognition that continuing was pointless against someone who had already decided he was not allowed to lose. Calith took her throne 2 weeks later, her uncle's plot exposed, Aldrin's betrayal proven beyond doubt, the guild's remaining members quietly withdrawing their standing contract against her life. I stood at the edge of the ceremony, still healing from wounds I had stopped counting, watching her step into a role she had once feared she would never survive to reach. Afterward, she found me the way she always did, without warning, without ceremony. "The guild sent a message to every assassin in the sector," she said. "A warning. Not about me, about you." "What does it say?" "Avoid human bodyguards," she said. "Not because they are the strongest fighters, because they never know when to stop." I thought about that for a long moment, about the war fought centuries ago that neither side truly won, about the reputation my species had built not through power, but through sheer refusal to quit, even when quitting would have been easier. "They're not wrong," I said. Kalith smiled, the first real smile I had seen from her since the day she walked into my life and asked a stranger to protect her. "No," she said, "they are not." And somewhere far beyond that hangar, beyond that throne room, beyond that quiet moment between two people who had survived something neither of them had expected to survive, the galaxy learned once again why nobody ever wanted to corner a human.